Has a woman ever complimented you in a way that made you feel judged instead of appreciated? Like she smiles and says, "Wow, you're really dressing up these days. Who are you trying to impress?" Or, "Must be nice to have so much free time while the rest of us are busy." It sounds polite, but let's be honest, it doesn't feel like support. It feels like a warning. Don't get too confident. Don't stand out too much. That's not kindness. That's jealousy, disguised as concern. Hi, it's Vernon again. And today I'll show you how to recognize the subtle, stinging words that jealous older women often use to tear others down. We'll uncover the quiet signs of female envy, those backhanded compliments, the passive-aggressive jokes, the moments that leave you questioning your worth. This isn't about blame. It's about clarity. So you can spot the shade hiding in the smile and learn how to protect your peace with dignity and strength. If any part of this feels familiar to you, take a moment to like this video, share it with another woman walking this same road, and subscribe to keep receiving the kind of wisdom that nourishes and strengthens women over 60. Your support helps us continue these conversations that too often go unspoken. Let's open the first page of truth. Because behind some words lie wounds we've carried in silence, and today we name them aloud. Number 1. The compliment that cuts. There's a certain kind of compliment that doesn't lift you, it levels you. It sounds kind, even sweet, but something about it feels off. You hear, "You're so lucky your husband still helps around the house," or "Not bad for your age," and you smile, because you've been taught to smile. But inside, something sinks. I remember when my wife Elaine decided to start walking every morning. It wasn't about weight or image, it was about clarity, peace of mind, and it was working. She looked lighter, not just in body, but in spirit. Then one day, an old friend of hers smiled and said, "Well, look at you trying to turn back the clock, huh?" It sounded like a joke, but I saw Elaine's face change. Just for a second. That wasn't encouragement. That was a quiet attempt to dim her light, to make her question the joy she'd found in herself. Later that evening, Elaine sat beside me in the kitchen, stirring her tea more than drinking it. She said softly, "It's strange, isn't it? The ones you think would cheer you on are the first to question your happiness." She wasn't angry, just disappointed. And that quiet realization, that the wound came from someone she once trusted, stayed with her far longer than the words themselves. And in that moment, I realized something simple but profound. People don't always resent your progress out loud. Sometimes, they whisper it through humor. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Elaine didn't stop walking. She smiled and kept showing up, morning after morning. And that's where the wisdom lives, not in pleasing others, but in staying true to what restores your soul. So here's a gentle thought to carry. The next time a compliment leaves you confused or small, pause. Reflect. Not all kindness is clean. Your body knows the difference between real kindness and quiet resentment. Not all wounds bleed. Some just settle in your spirit, disguised as politeness. And not all smiles are meant to lift you. Some are simply asking you, with perfect grace, "Would you mind stepping back into the box I'm comfortable seeing you in?" But you don't have to. Keep walking. Keep glowing. Keep choosing what restores your soul, because your light doesn't need permission. And even when it flickers under the weight of silent judgment or subtle dismissal, it still holds truth. You see, the world often rewards those who shrink, who stay predictable, who never outgrow the roles others assign them. But healing means expansion, and expansion will make some people uncomfortable. That's not your burden to carry. What is real will never ask you to dim. What is love will never feel like shrinking. So let them misunderstand you. Let them whisper. But never, ever let them write your story in their ink. If you've heard something like this before, something wrapped in sugar but meant to sour, leave a comment below. You're not alone, and your clarity may help someone else see more clearly too. And now, let's turn to another form this envy takes, one that hides not in compliments, but in concern. Number 2. The worry that wounds. Sometimes, jealousy doesn't mock you. It worries about you. At least, that's how it sounds at first. You might hear, "Are you sure you're not doing too much at your age?" Or, "Isn't that a bit much for someone like us?" These questions come dressed as care, but their tone doesn't soothe. It stings. Because deep down, they're not worried about your well-being. They're unsettled by your courage to grow beyond what's expected. Imagine a wildflower blooming in the middle of a paved parking lot. Out of place, unexpected, but no less beautiful. That's what it can feel like when someone reclaims a long-lost dream later in life. The contrast is jarring, not because it's wrong, but because it reveals how barren the rest of the space has become. And so, rather than admire the bloom, some will say, "Isn't that a strange place to grow?" Not realizing the quiet pain embedded in their words. The flower becomes a mirror, and not everyone is ready to see their own reflection. On the surface, it sounds like fatigue. But the truth? It was resistance masked as concern. The wildflower, blooming despite the concrete, became a quiet protest. A reminder of forgotten dreams. And instead of tending to their own neglected garden, they criticize the one flower brave enough to bloom. That's what often happens when a woman dares to grow after 60. The bloom unsettles those still dormant. The pushback isn't about your journey. It's about their fear of beginning theirs. There's an old quote from Carl Jung. What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. When others resist their own potential, they may try to shrink yours. And when they do, their concern is no longer about you, it's about the fear they haven't faced in themselves. This is the quiet dilemma many women over 60 face, when genuine passion is mistaken for restlessness, and courage to evolve is misread as a threat. But here lies the truth worth holding. The resistance you face isn't always about you. It's a mirror reflecting the silent fears others carry. Growth at any age is still growth. And wisdom, unlike youth, doesn't seek approval. It simply blooms. Perhaps that's what makes it so unsettling. So take heart. When the world misinterprets your joy, stay rooted, because your bloom is your truth. Now let's look at another shade this envy takes. One that wears the face of shared history. Number 3. The hidden scoreboard. Among women in their 60s and beyond, there's a quiet shift that often goes unnoticed, until it doesn't. Moments that should bring joy, like sharing that you've taken up watercolor painting or finally traveling to Italy, somehow feel complicated, because what you say isn't always heard as celebration. It's measured, compared, matched. You mention your daughter bought you a new phone, and someone quickly says, "Oh, mine got me the latest model last year." You talk about starting a book club, and they reply, "I've been running one for a decade." These aren't just casual replies, they're scorekeeping. But the game isn't about who's winning. It's about who feels left behind. At this stage of life, what once felt like community can sometimes shift into comparison. And it hurts more than we admit, because the comparison comes from women who've walked beside us for years. The ache isn't about envy alone. It's about grief. Grief for time we can't reclaim, for dreams deferred, for relevance slipping quietly from our grasp. And so, instead of clapping for each other, we keep count. Instead of saying "well done," we whisper "me too," just a little louder. But healing begins the moment we stop performing and start witnessing each other's joy, pain and growth without fear diminishes our own. That is the legacy we owe to one another. The philosopher Alain de Botton once said, "Status anxiety is worse among equals, and among women who've shared decades of life, motherhood, and marriage. There's often an unspoken pressure to stay on par. So instead of support, you get subtle corrections. Instead of admiration, you get quiet resistance." But here's the truth. Aging isn't a race. Joy isn't a limited resource. And your peace isn't a threat. It's a permission slip. One that says, it's never too late to start living in color. If you've ever sensed this silent tallying, know that it doesn't define your worth. You are not in competition with anyone. You are in communion with your own becoming. And it's from that place of quiet strength that we begin to recognize another mask envy wears. The kind that hides not in what they say to you, but in what they refuse to say at all. Number 4. The silence that speaks volumes. At this age, you start to notice who claps and who disappears. You share that you've finally started painting again, or that your granddaughter moved in to help you renovate the garden, and instead of joy, you're met with silence. No smile. No, that's wonderful. Just a shift in tone. Or worse, complete quiet. Older women, especially those who once called you a friend, sometimes don't say the harsh thing out loud. They just don't say anything at all. No acknowledgement, no interest. And that absence carries a weight, because it's not forgetfulness, it's distance. A cold gap left by discomfort, by envy. This kind of silence says, I noticed, and I wish I hadn't. It's not neutral, it's loaded. It's the stillness that follows not because they're speechless with joy, but because your progress confronts their own passivity. And it wounds deeply, not because it's loud, but because it comes from those who once stood beside you in your darkest seasons. After all the shared birthdays, hospital visits, tears and laughter, it's this sudden quiet that stings like cold wind on old scars. Have you ever experienced this kind of quiet withdrawal, the absence that follows your growth instead of applause? If so, share a line from your story in the comments. Someone out there might be holding back their own light, just waiting for a sign that they're not alone. There's something uniquely painful about being ghosted, not in conflict, but in success. You finally feel a bit of light returning to your life, and suddenly the room thins. You look around for familiar faces, and they're turned away, arms crossed, eyes downward. Their silence says more than their words ever could. Because in truth, it's not that they didn't see you, it's that they did, and couldn't handle it. Your healing, your joy, your progress, they're reminders of what they didn't pursue, of what they told themselves was too late. And so instead of facing that truth, they punish you with absence, thinking it will make your moment less real. But it doesn't. It only reveals what they cannot yet celebrate, and that perhaps is their burden to carry, not yours. But don't let that absence define your joy. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know the truth. You know your truth. You've earned every step. So when their silence grows, let your joy speak louder. You don't need applause to be proud of how far you've come. If you've ever celebrated quietly because others couldn't join in, share your story below. You might give someone else the strength to keep celebrating, even in silence. Because sometimes, the deepest envy isn't shouted or even whispered. It's joked about. Sarcasm has become the perfect disguise for resentment. And in our final truth, we'll uncover how those little jabs, wrapped in humor, are anything but harmless. Number 5. The joke that jabs. It often begins with laughter, but it ends with doubt. You say something good happened. Maybe you lost a few pounds, reconnected with an old passion, or finally booked that trip you've been dreaming about. And what do you hear? Look at you, all fancy now. Or, well, someone's trying to keep up with the young ones, it said with a smile. Maybe even a pat on the back. But the words don't lift you. They lean in with weight. These are not compliments. They're masked criticisms. And the older you get, the sharper the edge seems to become. Because your joy unsettles the places in others where their own joy has been neglected. Sarcasm is a clever cover. It lets the speaker wound while claiming innocence. I was just kidding, they'll say. You're too sensitive. But the body remembers what the mind tries to dismiss. That sting? It's real. And it deserves acknowledgement. Because as we age, we've learned to brush things off, to laugh along to keep the peace. But over time, that pretending becomes its own wound. I've seen women, strong, vibrant women, start to dim their joy because someone close kept making it the punchline. They stop sharing, stop celebrating. And slowly, they begin to believe that maybe their joy is too much. But it's not. Their discomfort isn't your burden. Their sarcasm isn't true. It's a projection of pain they haven't faced. And the wisdom we gain over decades? It teaches us this. Just because someone is older doesn't mean they're wiser. True wisdom lifts others. It never laughs at their light. Oscar Wilde once said, "Sarcasm is the lowest form of wit, but the highest form of intelligence." But when used to belittle, it becomes a tool of insecurity, not intellect. So, the next time someone disguises envy in a joke, pause. Smile if you wish, but protect your peace. You don't have to explain, shrink, or soften your light. Conclusion. You've earned every laugh line, every achievement, every step forward. Let no one wrap your progress in mockery, and call it friendship. If someone's ever laughed at your wins in a way that didn't feel right, remember this. Your light is not for them to dim. Let their discomfort be a sign of how far you've come, not a reason to turn back. Jealousy from older women rarely looks like open hostility. It often shows up wrapped in politeness, concern, or laughter, just like we've seen. A sideways comment, a silent room, a sarcastic joke. But beneath all of it is something simple and sad. Your growth reminds them of where they've stopped. Your light highlights the corners of their lives they've left dimmed. And instead of confronting that truth, they turn it outward, toward you. So what do? We walk forward with open eyes and a steady heart. We learn to separate our truth from their tension and our progress from their projections. Because aging isn't just about the years, it's about how gently we choose to hold our power. And sometimes, the most radical thing a woman over 60 can do is to be unapologetically joyful. Not quite, not careful, just real. Let their discomfort stay with them. Let your peace stay with you. So keep walking, keep blooming, keep rising. And if you must, walk alone. Because real joy, the kind rooted in healing, growth, and peace, doesn't need a witness to be real. It only needs to be lived. And if this reflection spoke to you, consider sharing it with someone else who might need it too. One honest word, passed from woman to woman, can change everything. And if you haven't already, tap that subscribe button and like this video. It helps more women like you find their voice, protect their peace, and remember, they are not alone on this path. And I'm Vernon. Thanks for watching.